Hey guys, this is Grace and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to share with you my first video for my latest 10 handmade cards, 1 homemade kit. And let's dive into card number 1. So with this one, I just wanted to use up that circle frame that I've cut out with my die cut machine, and I'm going to trim that out a little bit because it's pretty well, it's bigger than my card base, and also because I wanted some of the card base to peek out. So I'm going to trim that to on the sides. And then I have this, I think it's about a 1-inch square, a bunch of 1-inch square papers put into a collage or into a 6x6 pad. And so I'm going to cut some of that out, and then I'm going to use that as the backing of the circles so that each of the circles have a corresponding smaller pattern paper behind it. So I had to trim that because when the papers were all connected, they did not line up properly or perfectly with the circles. And so that's what I was doing there. And so now I'm going to line them all up, and then hopefully that they will all match. Now, the center one somehow did not quite match, or some of them did not quite match at the bottom. You can see that there's some spacings over there, and at first I was kind of deciding how to kind of get around that, because I really like how the papers were able to cover the entire piece of the circle. So I was kind of thinking, as I was doing this adhesive on to the circle, trying to think of maybe ways that I could extend the papers a little bit more. And but you'll see what I will do next. Now I'm using a very thin adhesive. This one's actually from scrapbook.com, and it's 1/8 inch adhesive strips. So it's very thin, and it works perfectly for these kinds of frames and projects. So I'm just peeling all that off, and then I am going to adhere those papers. So excuse my head, I wanted to make sure that I lined all that up perfectly as much as I can with each of the circles. So circle, or the strip 1 is good, and then now I'm going to do the next one, and then the third one. So now that I've adhered all of that, I was thinking of maybe putting something on the bottom because it was peeking out, but at the end I just decided to just leave it like that, because really there was just a little bit of the purple cardstock that was showing, and at the end of the day it really didn't matter so much. So I'm just going to skip that part and then adhere the whole block to my card base, and then decorate, because that is one of the fun parts. I'm just showing you that there's still there's a space there that's peeking out, but I'm not gonna worry about that. Okay, so now that my base is done, now I'm trying to figure out what kind of sentiment that I could add to this card. Now I was thinking, since there's a lot of circles, that it would be best for me to have my sentiment to kind of go over some of those circles, just to kind of break up all of the many circles that's already in the design. So I figured that I will do a strip of sentiment, and this one I believe it says for someone special, and I will heat emboss that using some black ink from oh, I remember, sorry, it's been a while since I created this layout. So at first I used my Hampton Arts embossing powder, but it actually was not very good. Like somehow the powder did not melt the way I wanted to, and so I'm going to show you that it was not perfectly the powder just wasn't sticking to the stamping the way I wanted to, and so I re-stamped it with some Versamark and used my American Crafts embossing powder instead, and that one was much better. So now I'm gonna make a note that yeah, I'm just gonna maybe, I don't want to throw it away, but maybe give the other embossing powder to a local friend or something, because yeah, it just wasn't working out for me. And then now I am going to fill in some of the circles, not all of them, some of the circles with some tiny die cuts from that Simple Stories die cut pack, and then finish those off with some rhinestones. And so that's card number one. And now we go on to card number two. Now with this one, I really just wanted to use the fringe die, and so that's kind of what I am going to be emphasizing, or yeah, I'm gonna show off. That's what I'm gonna be showing off in this card. So I cut two different sizes of squares. One will be nestled on top of the other, and then I had already pre-cut the fringes using some of the solid colored papers from one of the pattern 6x6 pads that I had picked for this particular kit. And so because I wanted those fringe to go on top of one another, again, I'm using the 1/8 inch adhesive, and then I'm just going to kind of find a mark where I want to start from the bottom and then work my way back up. And then I am going to trim the excess of that. Now, as I once I started trimming them, some of the fringe actually kind of were coming off, and so I have to re-adhere them using some liquid, or yeah, liquid adhesive, because once I cut them, as you can see, I'm showing you there that some of them were just coming off um, of the paper there, and so I just had to use some glue sticks, and then it worked out. So now that my fringe is done, so instead of making it a square, I actually turned it into a diamond, which I thought was really fun way that you can extend the life of your square die cuts as well. And as always, because I don't have a big stitch die cut rectangle die, I use my tracing wheel that's used for sewing and a ruler to create those dots on the edges of my paper. And then I'm just adding some adhesive to this pattern paper, and this will be my background, and I'm going to put that all over a purple cardstock base. And then this one is actually a very subtle pattern paper. It has some yellow notes to it, or yellow design, and it's mostly tone on tone, tone on tone on blah 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 tone on tone, so that you don't really see the design, but there is a very subtle design, and that's going to be the mat for my fringe diamond, and that's going to go on my card first, and then the fringe diamond fringe, I don't know how you say that. And then I found this cat with a unicorn um, horn, and that's going to be my basically my image and my focal point. And then it has a die cut as well, and that will be my sentiment. It says chase the rainbows, and that's gonna be it. I will add some rhinestones or some pearls to the four corners of the pattern paper, and then that will be my finishing touch for this particular card. And here's the close-up. Okay, so now we're going to move on to card number 3. And this one, I went back to those frames that I created with my die cut machine. This one, I am going to use the one where there's one long rectangle and then 3 smaller rectangles on the bottom. And this is going to be a horizontal card. Again, these frames that I had cut out are a little bit bigger on one side for my card bases. So I'm going to trim the top and the bottom just so that I can create a nice framing around it where it shows some of the green cardstock. Just trying to see if I need to trim that a little bit more, and I think I'm good. And then now I am going to back the top part with some yellow paper. That's actually part of the 6x6 pad. And at first I was thinking maybe I should just back all of them up with the pink, but I would actually change my mind a little bit later because I felt like the pink was a little bit too plain for the idea that I have for this particular card. And this 1/8 inch adhesive has really proven to be really helpful for me, especially with the frames that I have here. So here I'm deciding I really like the other side of the pink as well, and so I'm gonna use the pink side of the paper on the bottom, on the top, and then I'm going to use that floral pattern on the other side of this same paper for the bottom. Now I know that they will match well because they're from the same collection and the same pad, so I didn't have to worry about seeing if these papers match together. So now I'm just going to trim off the excess, and then I'm going to decorate the top. Now because the top is plain, I'm going to dress that up with a bunch of the Simple Stories die cuts that I pulled for this particular kit. I love this fairy, and so I'm just going to build a scene there. I'm kind of deciding which sentiment I want for this particular card, and so I picked that one, and that's going to go in the center on the bottom. And then I'm just kind of going through my die cuts trying to see if I can build a scene with these die cuts. And once I do that, I will later on, I'm not gonna be able to show this on camera, but I will be spraying some like shimmer mist on these die cuts so that they will have a little bit of shine before I adhere them to my card base. I just like to add that. I mean, you can also use some shimmer pen for that, but I have a shimmer mist that kind of make things faster because all you have to do is put all these die cuts in a box. That's what I do anyways, and then I spray them a couple of times and then set them aside to dry. So that's it. Versus if I would have used a shimmer pen, I have to actually run the shimmer pen on each and every one of these embellishments. So that's what I did, and I did adhere some of them with some foam adhesive, and then I'm adhering the sentiment with foam adhesive as well. Now I wanted to dress up the corners of it, and so I'm just kind of auditioning which rhinestones would work, and I would go with the blue one just because there's a lot of pinks already on the card, and I wasn't sure if these rhinestones will stand out if I put any more pinks in there. And then I will add a little bit more to the frame, and then I will call it good. And there's my card. And I love how the die cuts, I'm able to put tons of images on my card without me having to color and cut them because I'm not very good at that. Okay, so now we move on to card number 4. And I have to say, this is one of my favorites from this card set that I've created. So first of all, I am going to cut this blue paper. It's one of the 6x6, but it's solid, and I'm going to cut that a little bit smaller than my card base. All of my card bases are A2 size, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So this one is about 4 by 5 1/4. Okay, and I'm adding some stitching to the edges of it just to give it a little bit of something. And then I have pulled a few die cuts again from the Simple Stories pack, and I'm just gonna load this background piece with some die cuts. So it's basically like I'm creating my own pattern paper. And to make things faster, so I misted all these embellishments with some of that shimmer mist to give it that shine. And then to adhere them faster onto my card base, I actually used some spray adhesive, some, I think it's Aline or Aleen's, I think, or Aleen's. I can't remember, but it's a tacky glue, and I just bought that at Michael's, and that's what I used for all of these embellishments, and it really did make everything go faster. I just once the embellishments were dried from being misted, and then I just adhered or sprayed each one of them, and then put them on the paper, and that was it. I did the same spray adhesive onto the Hello background. That the yellow cardstock was cut from some mustard yellow cardstock, which is part of the kit that I had put together. It was an extra from cutting the card base, and then I put all that on a white or beige cardstock, I believe. And then I'm just dressing up the whole thing with some more rhinestones. So this layout, or this card rather, turned out pretty fast for me because the images were already pre-colored and pre-cut, so it was super easy. So if you have some die cuts lying around, you might want to try this out, making your own pattern paper with them. So the fifth layout here, I would say this is fairly simple as well, but I just wanted to revisit the fringe die cut and just kind of see what else I can make with it. And so I created some fringe borders with this, and I'm going to use that to create a border around the square that I will be using for this particular card. So I'm going to be layering a lot of pattern papers with this one, which is one of my goals as well for this particular kit, because I wanted to use up all of the papers from the two 6x6 pads that I have chosen for this particular kit. Again, just as always, I'm adding some stitching detail to the edges of these papers by running my sewing tracing tool with a ruler on the edge of it. So I hope that you guys are liking these kinds of videos. I do make these 10 handmade cards every other month. So since I did it in February, I will plan on making one in April. If you have a suggestion on kind of the theme that you want me to do for April, make sure that you leave it in the comment section below, and I will try to see if I have the elements or the products for that particular theme, and then we will go from there. Also, if you have any questions, make sure that you leave them in the comment section below. I don't always answer right away, but I do answer them as soon as I'm able to. Okay, so I adhered some adhesive on the edge of this square paper, and I am going to basically just add the fringes on the edges of it. So at first I was thinking that the fringe would go all around the square, but then it will kind of overlap with each other. So I just decided to cover up the square, leaving the corners kind of open, which I kind of like it. It gives it a little bit of an interest, and the fringe kind of stays where they are and they're not overlapping each other. So I like that. And then I also cut out a smaller square, and I'm going to nestle that right in the center of the fringe square that I created. And then this one, the sentiment die cut that says make some magic today, I believe, or every day. I had spray misted that so that it have a little bit of shine, adhered some foam adhesive on the back, and that will be my focal point, at the same time my sentiment. And I will add some green rhinestones to the corners just to give it a little bit of something as well. And so these are my 5 first 5 cards from this particular kit. If you want to see the next 5 cards, please make sure that you subscribe so you will be notified when I do post that. And again, thank you so much for stopping by, and I will catch you guys another day. Bye.